us people.
Okay, so the European Super League, already one of those funny words in history of things that just didn't work out, like New Coke. But let's have a recap, just in case anybody hasn't kept up with this. We had on Sunday night there was an announcement which included 6 English clubs, which was a slap in the face for Scotland. Included Tottenham, which was a slap in the face for fucking everybody. And straight away this seemed bogus, right? You know, apparently no relegation or promotion initially. No Germans, no French, no Dutch clubs, no Belgians. You could probably live without the Belgians, let's be honest. I mean, the whole composition of it was insane. We had the same amount of clubs from London as from the whole of Spain, which seems a bit of a strange weighting system. Dom, I mean, as somebody that is an expert, certainly to me, on money, is this an example of basic greed and capitalism, or actually is it the free market doing its job?
Well, that's a good question. And I subscribe to the Michael Douglas point of view that greed is good. There's the famous Adam Smith quote, "It is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the baker, or the brewer that we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own self-interest." It's not from Geoff Norcott's benevolence that we expect a wonderful podcast. Geoff is creating a wonderful podcast because he wants to get on in life and make people laugh and become a well-known international face of comedy. So people acting in their own self-interest can bring greater good to the world.
I mean, I take on board everything you said, but I think international, I think if I could just sell out Monmouth Savoy would be a start.
Okay, national. You want to be huge in Monmouth. The way people reacted, you'd think that FIFA and UEFA were these huge, great, morally upright, great guardians of everything that's right in the world. Yeah. Surely anything that undermines FIFA and UEFA is a good thing, because FIFA and UEFA are 2 of the most bent organizations in the sordid history of monopolies ever to have existed. And maybe it's just me, but I think a European Super League was a really good idea, and it would be really good. It's not like you're not going to have, Chelsea playing Lincoln City. That game is still going to exist in the FA Cup. And it's not like you're not going to have the ordinary Premier League. That was still going to exist. But the idea of this Super League between, Chelsea and Man City and everything else, I think it would have resulted potentially in more footballing excellence.
But what happens if there was relegation, right? Imagine the embarrassment of getting I mean, it's bad getting relegated from the Premiership. Imagine having been in the European Super League. It's a bit like, when your mate kind of upsizes just before a credit crunch and, just gets into the big 5-bedroom with a swimming pool, and he's like, no, we're back in a flat now. 2-bed. Actually, we're happier. We're happier.
I mean, it's really funny how tits up the Super League has gone in such a short
space
of time.
Funny?
It's pathetic. And if ever you thought that lizards and other people control the world, well, here's an example. They really fucking don't. Everyone's as incompetent as everyone else. It used to be that a football team would be the young bucks of whatever area you lived in, competing against other young bucks from around the country. And and these were the representatives from the local community, and great, but football's lost touch with that 30, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, long time ago. That's gone. And the idea that, Mohamed Salah is the young buck of Liverpool, he's not. He's from Egypt. He's got nothing to do with Liverpool except he plays for them. He's a mercenary. He's a hired hand, an absolutely brilliant footballer, but he's nevertheless a mercenary. And, you look at, football, you look at the atmosphere, some of the footage of terraces in the 1970s, and I know there was hooliganism and all the rest of it, but it was amazing. You look at like the Cop singing "She Loves You, Yeah, Yeah, Yeah," and things like that. It's just some of the there was, and it is the fans that have made, in my opinion, the Premier League so good and made it such a wonderful export, and they get absolutely nothing for it. They are just, they're just ripped off for shirts, they're ripped off for their support, they're ripped off for their loyalty. So the idea that football has long since lost touch with its roots, it's lost touch with what it's supposed to be.
We're now legacy fans, Dom. What I mean, that's a new word for old bastards that think it was better during the days of terrorism.
I'm a legacy comedian.
I'm a legacy husband. That's what my wife's now calling me. One thing I don't think that they bargained with, Dom, was the chips that the other organisations were holding. The Premier League, we say, well, you can't play in the Premier League. And FIFA were going, well, players that play in this can't play in the World Cup. So I don't think that they'd reckoned with just how militant the stances would be from those organisations. And also whether or not it was guff or bollocks. But Boris weighed in fairly quickly. Which was an easy win for the government. Is it just, have they miscalculated just simply in terms of their relative power versus the rest of football?
I can't believe they're that stupid to have thought, well, actually, the players might not want this, the fans might not want this. Maybe there was just a sense of entitlement, and maybe the CEOs of those 8 or 12 clubs who were involved in it, or the owners, are in their own little ownership bubble. And they had their little WhatsApp groups and they talked about it, and they just thought everyone would roll over and go with it. And nobody factored in the possibility that actually the rest of the world might not want it.
Can you imagine that WhatsApp group as it started to go wrong as well?
Yeah.
Manchester City have left the conversation.
Yeah. As I think it's just that.
Chelsea have left the conversation. In the end, it just ended up the Glazers and Henry going, fuck it, I told you we shouldn't have called it super. It wasn't a strong enough word. We should have gone like fucking amazing league. That's what I said. Yeah. There is talk that this idea might come around again. Like the European Super League have kind of gone like, almost like a shit supervillain gone, you haven't heard the last from us. But I wonder if this is so bad, or this has gone so badly that we actually have heard the last from them. Like if they'd have handled it differently, they might have left scope. If this had been presented as more of an opening salvo and a negotiation rather than a fait accompli.
Well, you make me think of Theresa May's senile tax, not the dementia tax. Even though it was probably necessary and probably not actually that bad an idea, because it was handled so badly, that is now not going to appear again for probably a generation. And I wonder with this European Super League, if there's a similar thing, we're just not going to hear from it again because it was such a total PR disaster.
What most people think is that this is a shit idea. It is important that there is some sense of meritocracy in football, and these clowns can fuck off.